Yo, what is going on, guys? It is Taylor the Fiend back again. And on today's episode, I have a very sad story for you here today. You know, usually when I've been doing these stories recently, I've been having a break from covering crazy women on TikTok. And usually when I cover these stories, they're either interesting or funny. You know, the woman gets her day where she gets screwed over after screwing the man over for so long. But this one is just straight up sad, okay? It is titled, I raised a daughter for 12 years. That is right, guys, 12 years. And then I found out she wasn't mine. Now, obviously, this is paternity fraud. It severely affects the man and the child. So the woman would have known that there was a chance that this child was not actually the man's and probably some other dude that she was sleeping with at the time. But of course, she doesn't tell the guy. She allows him to continue to think that, hey, in all likelihood, this child is yours, you're fine, everything's good. And then 12 years down the line, oops, turns out the kid wasn't his. This is very sad for the child. And of course, very, very disturbing for the man who thought he was the father to find out. Stories like this are incredibly damn common, guys. This happens so damn often. It is absolutely disgusting. So let's jump into this one. I believe this is an article that is based off of a Reddit story. So let's jump into it. A man spent over a decade raising his daughter only to discover she wasn't biologically his. His wife's past choices unraveled his entire reality, leaving him questioning everything. The story highlights the devastating impact of deception in relationships and raises the debate on mandatory paternity testing. I think, before we even jump into it, guys, there should be automatic DNA testing at birth for paternity. Like, as soon as, you know what I mean, it should be the default. Now, if either the quote-unquote mother or the father has an issue with it, they can bring it up and perhaps, you know, not have the test done. But I think if your woman is asking you not to do the paternity test that comes standard at birth, then perhaps you should actually be doing the test. So let's continue. A picture-perfect marriage. John and Jane had what appeared to be an ideal marriage. They were both career-driven, athletic, and deeply in love. Their families got along well. That's actually kind of a rarity, I feel like, these days. Usually families just don't get along well. And they shared dreams of starting a family together. John, already 40, was initially hesitant about having children, but after some discussion, he agreed. They made financial arrangements, and Jane decided to become a stay-at-home mother once they conceived. Everything was planned meticulously until reality struck. So here's the thing as well, is what you'll notice is a lot of these women, they know that they are pregnant to another man early on. So what they try and do is they're like, hey, let's have a child. And because they know that they can fake it as the dude's child, right? As the man who is their boyfriend or husband or whatever. So when women oftentimes rush into these things, guys, please understand that they know that there's a solid chance that the kid is not the dude that she's with, right? Is not his kid. And so they do this very, very deliberately. You know, she wants to rush into this. She wants to rush into having children. She pushes him for it because she knows that she's already having a child regardless, right? And if she has a child and they were not really actively having to try and have a child, it becomes very suspicious. You see what I'm saying? So let's continue. After 6 months of trying, Jane still wasn't pregnant. Concerned, they sought medical advice. Jane's test came back normal, but John was asked to provide a sample. He complied, even joking that the process was more fun with Jane by his side. All right. The next day, the doctor requested an urgent follow-up. He was sterile. He was devastated, feeling like a failure, even though it was beyond his control. He began contemplating if he should let Jane go so she could have a family with someone else. Right, so what they wanted to do is they wanted to have it through donation. At first, John considered asking a close friend, but he ultimately opted for an anonymous donor. After multiple failed attempts, they finally had success, or so he thought. John was overjoyed. He cherished every moment as a father, attending every recital, sports event, and milestone. He fully embraced fatherhood, believing he had defied the odds. So it seems like, maybe I'm misreading it a little bit, but it actually seems like they actually, you know, the child was his. and he thinks that the child is his. Let's keep going. Years later, while attending his daughter's basketball game, John noticed Jane speaking intensely with a stranger. When he approached, the man dismissed him, whose name was Mitch. Jane quickly introduced Mitch as an old boyfriend, but the encounter unsettled John. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. Yeah, so here's the thing. If your wife or girlfriend is talking to ex-boyfriends, this is not a good sign. Okay, I've seen so many of these these stories and stuff, man, where a dude will like post on Reddit, or he's asking for advice or whatever, or articles like this one that are usually based off of Reddit stories. I see dudes raising their concerns about this all the time, and then you'll have people in the comments being like, oh, don't worry, man, you know, don't be insecure, he's just like an old friend. And it's like, no, this is gaslighting. This is gaslighting that is deliberately done to men, and people understand, right, what this really is. I think women perfectly well understand what this really is, you know. And a lot of these girls who are like, oh, you're just being insecure, they would not feel comfortable if it was the other way around, if the shoe was on the other foot. If a man was out here, a married man was talking to his ex-girlfriend, I guarantee you all of the women in the comments, especially over on places like Reddit, would be like, oh, no, you can't be doing that, right? Which I agree is inappropriate. I don't think anybody should be speaking to their exes, to be honest, and I don't understand why people would even want to. But hey, so she's out here, she's talking to a dude who is an old boyfriend. Always a fantastic sign when your significant other is talking to someone that they used to be with. Great stuff. And the thing is, these days, what makes this worse, by the way, guys, is a lot of times women's old boyfriends aren't actually old boyfriends. They're just like random dudes on their Facebook and stuff like this, because you've got to understand that there is so many situationships. I hate that word, but there are so many situationships these days where women have hooked up with a guy, failed to secure commitment, so they don't necessarily count it, and then they just say, oh, he's just a friend. And like, yeah, they weren't together in the sense of boyfriend and girlfriend or husband and wife or whatever, but they still hooked up, and then the women will neglect to mention that. So John later learned that Mitch had attended multiple games and was only cheering for his daughter. But when he confronted Jane, she was evasive, claiming that she hadn't spoken to Mitch in over a decade, but the timeline didn't add up. His concern turned into an obsession. One night, unable to hold back any longer, he bluntly asked Jane the question that had been gnawing at him. Who is our daughter's real father? So this dude, actually, you know, he knows, he has the understanding that this child is a good chance his, right, at the very least. So he's attending these games, he's, you know, supporting the child. This whole situation is incredibly damn weird. It sounds to me like this guy knows that the kid is actually his, or at the very least he strongly suspects it, and that's why he's attending these sorts of games. Insane. Jane initially denied any wrongdoing, as they always do, but as John pressed, her facade crumbled. Through tears, she confessed that after their failed medical attempts, she secretly sought out Mitch and slept with him for a week, determined to conceive. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's just stop it here. I think that this is also a lie. I think that this woman was cheating with him beforehand, right? Got pregnant, and then went through the whole process of asking her husband, hey, we should have a child. You see what I'm saying? I think this is very suspicious. I think she was probably cheating to begin with, perhaps not taking the anti-child measures as seriously as she should have, and wound up in this situation. Absolutely insane. Can you imagine this situation, by the way? Like, you're a dude, you just got told that you're quite likely to be infertile, and then your wife's immediate solution within the week, what did she say, within the week? No, she hooked up with him for a week, but her immediate solution to the problem was, hey, let's go and talk to an ex-boyfriend about the situation. That is disgusting, man. That is next level messed up, genuinely. And you know, it's like, when you look at stories like this, by the way, the dude suffers, okay, but the child suffers as well, because the child is there the whole 12 years or whatever it is, thinking that this dude is their father. You know, growing up thinking, hey, this is my dad, this is my father, this is who's looking after me. But then the child's going to find out that, you know, that's not really dad. And that's really messed up for a child to have to go through, man. Like, you know, children trying to process this crap is not something that they should even be processing in the first place. It should be very simple for children, you know. There's my mother, there's my father. Very, very simple stuff. There should be no confusion whatsoever. Like, it's crazy to me how, like, people just, there are so many situations where kids just aren't allowed to be kids anymore. You know, like, things aren't simple. They can't just have a good, simple childhood. Everything's messed up. We got so many single mothers, you know, so much family dysfunction these days. A lot of paternity fraud, like this story as well, is around. It's insane. I really, like, guys, I feel for the children in these situations. It's really sad stuff. Very, very sad stuff. John was shattered. Everything he had built his life around, his marriage, his role as a father had been a lie. He packed his belongings that night and never returned. He cut off all contact with Jane and the daughter that he once adored. This is some sad stuff, man. Imagine you look after a child for 12 years. You think it's your, you know, your little princess, your daughter. 12 years, and you have to just cut the whole thing off. Like, the emotional investment that you as a man put into that must be absolutely insane. I'm not a father, but I would assume that this has to be incredibly painful to do. Jane remarried, but rarely speaks to her parents who disapproved of her actions. That's hilarious. So the parents are like, what the hell? Meanwhile, John remains a shell of the man he once was, struggling to trust again. The emotional scars run deep, and the loss of a child he believed was his own is something that he may never recover from. So I'm hoping this guy will recover, right? I really am. I believe in him. I hope that he does. I personally think that trust is incredibly overrated, especially with modern day women, guys. Like, trust is such, oh, you need to trust everybody, guys. You need to open your heart and trust all these people. It's like, hell no, these people are crazy. You know what I mean? Like, guys, there are so many stories of dudes who have been with women for like 15 years and they've been cheating for like 10 of them. You know, they never knew, they were trusting. It's like, maybe we should introduce a little bit of reality. And the reality is, people are not always fantastic, you know? Like, I think there should be some base level understanding that there are a lot of messed up people out there, right? And it's very important to protect yourself, especially from a legal standpoint as a man. You know, don't get married. If you're a dude and you're braving the dating world, still don't get married. But take these things very seriously, man. This is why red flags, you know, learning from other men, very, very, very important, so you don't wind up in a situation like this, or at the very least, the odds of you ending up in a situation like this are lessened. But guys, we're going to be leaving today's story there. If you have any similar stories to share, make sure to leave a comment. Make sure to leave your thoughts of the story overall. If anything similar has happened in your life, maybe you know a friend or something. Obviously, don't include full names or anything like that, but make sure to leave your comments, your thoughts. Have you seen stuff like this happen before? And I will see you all in the next one. Peace.